Pay attention to Elianne Andam, 15 years old, as she runs past her friend's ex-boyfriend outside a shopping center in Croydon on the morning of September 27, 2023. She has less than 1 minute to live because Hassan Sentamu, 17, is about to chase her down with a 12-centimeter kitchen knife he brought from home specifically for this meeting. When Elianne snatches back a bag containing her friend's belongings, including a cherished teddy bear, Hassan will stab her 4 times in a frenzied attack, severing her carotid artery and leaving her to die on the pavement while wearing 2 pairs of gloves to avoid leaving forensic evidence. This isn't a story about a fight that got out of hand. This is a story about a teenage girl who once spent a rainstorm carefully moving snails off the pavement because she didn't want them to die, who dreamed of becoming a human rights lawyer to change the world, and who was murdered in broad daylight for the crime of standing up for her friend during a dispute over returned belongings. Elianne Andam was a Year 11 student at the Old Palace of John Whitgift School in Croydon. Her family called her their miracle baby, a young woman of deep faith and vibrant energy. She was intelligent, thoughtful, possessed a radiant smile and infectious laughter. She had a steadfast sense of right and wrong. She'd already decided she wanted to become a human rights lawyer to advocate for justice and change the world. Her solidarity with others was her defining feature. Her father Michael recounted a childhood memory that perfectly captured Elianne's gentle spirit. During a heavy rainstorm, Elianne spent time meticulously picking up snails from the pavement to move them out of harm's way. She told her father she didn't want the slimy creatures to die prematurely. That detail now carries devastating irony. A girl who cared so deeply about saving snails would die on a pavement herself, killed by senseless violence. On the morning of September 27, 2023, Elianne's protective nature would manifest one final time. Her friend S had arranged to meet her ex-boyfriend, Hassan Sentamu, to exchange belongings following their breakup. Elianne came along to support her friend. She had no way of knowing Hassan had brought a knife. At 8:30 a.m. on Wellesley Road, outside the Whitgift Center in Croydon, Hassan Sentamu met his ex-girlfriend to exchange belongings. S had brought a bag of Hassan's items, but Hassan arrived empty-handed. He hadn't brought S's property, which included a cherished teddy bear. When Hassan took the bag from S and began walking away without reciprocating, Elianne intervened on her friend's behalf. She wanted to ensure her friend wasn't cheated. She wanted to get to school on time. So Elianne ran past Hassan and snatched the bag back. Witnesses would later testify that she was, as she did so. There was no malice, no aggression, just a teenage girl trying to help her friend get her belongings back. What happened next lasted less than a minute, but changed everything. Hassan immediately gave chase. He drew a 12-centimeter kitchen knife he'd brought from home. He cornered the unarmed schoolgirl, and in what the court would later describe as a frenzied attack driven by white-hot anger, Hassan stabbed Elianne 4 times. He stabbed her in the left shoulder, he stabbed her in the right leg, and then he delivered a fatal strike to the right side of her neck that severed her carotid artery. The attack was witnessed by dozens of commuters and schoolchildren. London bus driver Samuel Sinclair, a passenger on a nearby bus, rushed to Elianne's side. He held her hand and provided comfort as she lost consciousness. 3 ambulance crews and the helicopter emergency medical service arrived rapidly, but the catastrophic bleeding from the severed carotid artery was unsurvivable. At 9:21 a.m., less than an hour after the encounter began, Elianne Andam was pronounced dead at the scene. Hassan Sentamu fled the scene immediately. He discarded a mask, his gloves, and the murder weapon behind a garden wall. He attempted to evade detection by changing his upper clothing and boarding 2 different buses, the 130 followed by the 64. But at 9:45 a.m., just 74 minutes after the murder, a police officer spotted Hassan stepping off the 64 bus at Goldcrest Way in New Addington. Upon his arrest, the officer noticed what appeared to be a blood smear on Hassan's thumb. When questioned, Hassan gave the false name John. Body-worn footage captured the moment the gravity of the situation shifted. The officer was recorded telling colleagues, "It's murder right under us, with murder no longer GBH intent." The evidence of premeditation was already clear. Hassan had worn 2 pairs of gloves, black gloves over a base pair, to avoid leaving forensic evidence. He'd worn a mask. He'd brought a kitchen knife from home to a meeting with unarmed teenage girls. The trial at the Old Bailey centered on Hassan Sentamu's mental state and his history of violence. Hassan was 17 at the time of the murder. The defense sought a verdict of manslaughter based on diminished responsibility, arguing Hassan had an autism spectrum disorder with diagnostic scores of 7 and 9. They pointed to his traumatic childhood in Uganda, including witnessing domestic violence and being beaten with a metal pole at boarding school. They cited emotional immaturity and a loss of control during a perceived moment of public humiliation. But the prosecution successfully argued for a murder conviction by presenting a chilling history of violence. Hassan had received a police caution at age 12 for bringing a knife to school. He'd threatened a pupil with a knife on a school trip. He'd assaulted 2 female pupils at a mainstream school. And even after murdering Elianne, while on remand at Oak Hill Secure Training Center, Hassan attacked another child, knocking the victim to the floor. The prosecution argued the killing was driven by white-hot anger and a short fuse, rather than communication difficulties from autism. They highlighted clear evidence of premeditation: the 2 pairs of gloves, the mask, the knife brought from home specifically for this meeting. They presented a pattern of attacking girls, of habitually aggressive behavior, of calculated violence. The jury found Hassan Sentamu guilty of murder. On March 13, 2025, Mrs. Justice Chima Grubb sentenced Hassan Sentamu to detention during His Majesty's pleasure, the legal equivalent of a life sentence for a minor, with a minimum term of 23 years. In her sentencing remarks, the judge explicitly rejected the autism-based defense. She ruled that the driver of the offense was Hassan's temper and aggressive tendencies, not his communication difficulties. She noted Hassan was not in a complex social situation that would trigger an autistic shutdown. Rather, he'd made a deliberate, calculated choice to carry a lethal weapon to a meeting with unarmed girls. She cited his personality issues and history of attacking girls as evidence of a dangerous and unpredictable individual. Hassan Sentamu wouldn't be eligible for parole until he'd served at least 23 years, until 2046, when he'd be 40 years old. The proceedings were marked by profound grief from the Andam family. Dorcas Andam, Elianne's mother, addressed Hassan directly, accusing him of trying to cover his monstrous acts with evil lies regarding his memory of the event. Michael and Dorcas Andam described the hollow, painful silence that has replaced their daughter's music and laughter. Michael expressed haunting guilt. "I could not protect her. That guilt will weigh on my heart for the rest of my life." Think about what Michael Andam said. He couldn't protect his daughter. No parent should have to say those words. Elianne went to school on a Wednesday morning to support her friend during a routine exchange of belongings. She never came home. She was stabbed to death on a public street in broad daylight because she tried to help her friend get a teddy bear back. The Croydon community responded with vigils attended by thousands, including rapper Stormzy. A large mural featuring Elianne's radiant smile was unveiled on Wellesley Road as a permanent reminder of the life lost. Mrs. Justice Chima Grubb referenced this mural in her sentencing remarks, noting, "Its presence marks the determination of the community to declare to young men like you, as forcefully as they can, put the knives down." Elianne's death has become a catalyst for renewed focus on the UK's knife crime epidemic. In the year ending March 2023, England and Wales saw over 50,000 knife offences. London accounted for 14,000 of these. Croydon specifically recorded over 700 offences, marking it as one of the capital's worst affected areas. The government continues to pilot knife crime prevention orders, which can be issued to those as young as 12 without a conviction. A 2023 Home Office consultation led to proposed bans on zombie-style knives and machetes, weapons designed to look menacing with no practical purpose. Mayor Sadiq Khan framed Elianne's case within an epidemic of violence against women and girls, calling for a shift in how masculinity and relationships are taught to young boys to combat deep-seated misogyny. Because that's what this case represents. A teenage girl was murdered for standing up to a boy who couldn't handle being told no, who couldn't accept that his ex-girlfriend had moved on, who brought a knife to a meeting about returning belongings. The murder of Elianne Andam is a tragedy that represents everything wrong with knife crime in the UK. A 15-year-old girl with dreams of becoming a human rights lawyer was stabbed to death on her way to school because she tried to help her friend get her belongings back. Elianne Andam wanted to become a human rights lawyer. She wanted to change the world. She wanted to advocate for justice. Instead, she became another statistic in the UK's knife crime epidemic. One of over 50,000 knife offences recorded that year. One of 14,000 in London. One of 700 in Croydon. Hassan Sentamu will serve a minimum of 23 years. He'll be eligible for parole in 2046 when he's 40 years old. He'll have decades to reflect on what he did. Elianne had 15 years of life. She'll never become a human rights lawyer. She'll never change the world. She'll never advocate for justice. Because Hassan Sentamu brought a knife to a meeting about a teddy bear and murdered her for grabbing a bag.